Dollywood, just a short couple weeks ago, opened to the public what could very well be the best family roller coaster outside of Disney or Universal. Big Bear Mountain is a multi-launching family roller coaster built by Vekoma. The ride stats include 66-foot height, 48-mile-per-hour top speed, and 3,990 feet of track, making this the longest roller coaster at Dollywood. Presentation. Big Bear Mountain is located over in the newer themed section of the park, Wildwood Grove. The roller coaster travels through and along the entirety of this themed land, serving as a backdrop to a few of the attractions. The theming on Big Bear Mountain isn't fully immersive, but about on par with the other rides in the park. The queue is where guests will start to get a little flavor of what this ride is all about. Bear puns, oh, and yeah, a lot of more bear puns. I think everything that you can read in the queue is some sort of bear pun. The theming in the queue is also very well done, about the same as Lightning Rod or Fire Chaser Express. The trains and onboard audio is where this ride really shines. I love the headlights and rear lights on the train, designed to mimic the look of like a Jeep-like vehicle. The onboard audio keeps you engaged with the story, which is pretty simple. You're tasked with tracking down Big Bear, which is seen wandering around in the surrounding woods. There are a few spots on the ride where the riders can hear the bear, but never actually come in contact with a bear animatronic or whatnot. As cool as it would be if there was actually some sort of bear, it's not the point of the attraction. Hearing the audio allows you to use your imagination, thinking that the bear could be hiding around the next corner. Big Bear Mountain is a ride that I want to see in like 10 years, because right now the area surrounding the attraction is a little bare, no pun intended. When the trees and foliage start to grow in, Big Bear Mountain is only going to continue to look better and better. Presentation earns a 9 score. Operations. Normally I would be discussing ride intensity, but since this is a family roller coaster, discussing ride intensity seems like an unnecessary topic because these style of roller coasters aren't about pushing the boundaries on G-forces, but providing a well-rounded family fun experience. Not to say that Big Bear Mountain lacks any forces, which is untrue, but downgrading its score based off of a category that this roller coaster isn't aiming at seems unfair. So as for operations, Big Bear Mountain operates with 2 trains. These trains function with 10 2-seat cars, providing a total capacity of 20 people per train. I had the opportunity to time many dispatches, and the overall average was about 90 seconds. That means Big Bear Mountain is capable of sending 40 trains an hour. At that rate, this roller coaster has a capacity around 800 riders an hour. The best dispatch I captured was 75 seconds, and that seems like the minimum wait time needed in between 2 trains. So if this ride is functioning in peak performance, Big Bear Mountain is capable of hitting around 1,000 guests an hour. Being a new attraction, there are still some bugs being worked out, but for the most part, I thought Dollywood staff was doing an excellent job operating their new roller coaster. When I was waiting in line, it was constantly moving, which is a good thing. It's when you get stuck in a stagnant line that pushes your patience. Big Bear Mountain earns a solid 8 score for their operations. Fun factor. When it comes to family attractions, it's the fun factor that matters. I am happy to report that Big Bear Mountain is loads of fun. From the moment you walk into the queue until you are walking off the attraction, Big Bear Mountain keeps you engaged. The ride starts off with a nice launch right out of the station as you take a rising bend to the left. The coaster immediately enters the second launch that will send you flying to the other side of Wildwood Grove. After a couple rising bends and turns, Big Bear drops down through and around a waterfall. The coaster continues to perform many multiple bank turns. If there is one thing I can say about Big Bear Mountain is how twisted the track is. The ride then comes to the final launch that will accelerate you to the max speed, sending you into the highest part of the ride as you fly over the queue and entrance. The roller coaster dives down into the most intense part of the ride where you perform a 180-degree turnaround. The G-forces here are pretty strong, and it was the only moment on the ride that threatened a grayout. The coaster takes a couple more overbank turns that dive into a ravine, followed by the only set of sorta true airtime hills. The ride pops through 2 bunny hills that provide very minimal airtime. Big Bear Mountain finishes off with a helix that leads into a drop through a tunnel that pops up into the brake run. Big Bear Mountain is a long, twisted, fun ride. I really want to emphasize that twisted aspect, as many of these elements on this roller coaster is sharp turns or sweeping overbank turns. Airtime fanatics may be a little disappointed with Big Bear Mountain, but airtime really isn't the focus of this ride. With 3 launches, a long runtime, tunnels, waterfall, and many bank turns, Big Bear has a lot of positive things going for it. I give this roller coaster a solid 9 for the fun factor. The only reason I hold back a point is for the lack of airtime. Not to say that every roller coaster needs tons of airtime, but with so many bank turns, a little airtime would be nice to mix things up, but again, not enough to deter this from being an excellent family roller coaster. Originality. At first glance, many were curious, including myself, why Dollywood would build yet another family launching roller coaster. The park already has Fire Chaser Express, which features a forward and backward launch. Even though these 2 roller coasters are launching roller coasters, they feel like completely different experiences. Big Bear Mountain has an interesting storyline that is engaging the whole way through. In terms of intensity, I would say that Big Bear is a step up from Fire Chaser Express. Not by a lot, but enough to allow it to stand on its own. The ride features 3 LIM launches, which having 3 launches isn't unique per se, but the fact that this ride uses LIM tech is very unusual. I was always under the assumption that LIM tech was old tech. In fact, according to RCDB, the last roller coaster built from the ground up that uses similar tech was Incredicoaster back in 2001. The only thing that I can think of is maybe Dollywood was a little leery with the LSM tech, which is utilized on Lightning Rod. We all know how glitchy and problematic that attraction is. I think there is enough here to make Big Bear Mountain feel like its own kind of ride. The snappy bank turns, onboard audio, and unique spread around layout that makes this feel pretty original, earning an 8 score. Ride smoothness. I can say that Big Bear Mountain is a glossy smooth, 0 complaints, 10 rating. Oh, though I will include that the restraints are a little challenging for taller guests. It wasn't a major problem, but I did have to contort my legs a bit so I could fit inside the train. Just an FYI. Alright, the final technical score comes to 8.8, which is a pretty great score for a family roller coaster. I didn't include the ride intensity score in this review, but if I were to give that category a ranking, I would say intensity is somewhere around a 5. I can hear an argument for a 6 maybe, but it's not super intense ride other than the one turnaround element. My personal score, which when considering this as a family roller coaster, is a 9.5. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Big Bear Mountain may very well be one of the best family coasters outside of a Disney Universal park. Obviously, there are many family coasters out there in the US that I've yet to experience, but I think Big Bear Mountain is at the pinnacle of this category. The only thing that's holding me back from giving this a perfect 10 family coaster score is how bare the area that surrounds the attraction, which again will change over time, and the lacking of airtime, but again, that's not the focus of this ride. Even with these 2 things, Big Bear Mountain excels as a great new addition for Dollywood, and I can't wait to see what next project this property unleashes upon us. Thank you for watching this review. Until next time, this is X Scream Thrills.